Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we have a source stack that could uh, give a supercomputer a nervous breakdown.
It really could.
We're talking about everything from hyperpersonal health goals and, the physics of a knockout punch.
All the way up to deep political controversies.
Right, and then we finish with some of the most bizarre animal behavior you've ever heard of. It's an insane collection.
It is. And our mission really is to find the signal in all that noise. We're going to try and connect these threads by focusing on a few big ideas: survival, power, and the ethical limits of nature, both human and animal.
So you get immediate distilled knowledge.
Exactly. We're balancing the wild facts with the critical context you need. Let's jump in.
Okay, let's start where survival really begins.
Yeah.
Fighting time itself. I had this stark realization recently. I'm 58, and I realized the next 20 years, the gap between now and 78, it feels like nothing. It feels like 2005 was yesterday.
It flies by.
It does. And if you don't act now, that next 20 years is what decides if you're thriving or just, getting by.
That mental shift is so important. It puts the urgency into these health stories we see, like Jelly Roll dropping over 40 pounds.
Right.
The sources frame that as him basically adding decades to his life, pulling himself back from a really high-risk path. It just shows the clock isn't totally in charge. Not yet.
And it means dealing with the silent killers, too, like sleep. We all know about sleep apnea, but it's not just snoring.
No, it's a real physical threat.
Your airway is actually obstructing. You're choking. There's a risk of dying in your sleep. That's why you hear about guys like Reggie White, the football player.
Exactly. Their sheer size, those giant necks from years of training, can actually work against them. The tissue just closes up when they're unconscious.
So how do you fix it? The standard is a CPAP machine, but you hear these horror stories.
Oh, yeah.
The sources had that grim story about someone getting double pink eye because they just didn't clean their machine.
Turns a life-saving device into a bacterial hazard. It's that friction point between the tech and, real-world use. But you found a different solution, right?
I did. I wanted to avoid the whole CPAP thing. For me, the game changer was this simple mouthpiece. It just presses the tongue down.
So it can't slide back.
Exactly. Prevents the obstruction. It works wonders. The only downside, frankly, is you definitely have to take that thing out before any intimate moments.
A required pause, let's say.
A necessary sacrifice. But the other huge win was finally fixing my deviated septum.
Which was from an old injury.
2, actually. A fall when I was 5, and then a jiu-jitsu injury in my late 30s. That surgery, it was like finding a cheat code for my body.
What do you mean?
An instant 10% gain in my cardio. Immediately. It wasn't subtle, it was profound. It just shows the biggest gains aren't always in the gym. Sometimes you just have to fix the blockages.
It's a great case study. Now, on a slightly more controversial health note, we had this liver workout theory pop up. The idea that light, consistent drinking, maybe a little whiskey every day, doesn't damage the liver but actually strengthens it.
Turns it into a marathon runner.
Right. It's an appealing thought, isn't it? Your vice is secretly a training program.
I mean, who wouldn't want to believe that?
Well, scientifically, we know alcohol demands processing. But the source material here is really about the psychology. People want to justify their habits. That marathon runner analogy is a perfect example of the mental gymnastics you need to believe a known toxin is giving you an edge.
A fun rationalization, but maybe not the best medical advice.
Let's just say approach with extreme caution.
Okay, let's pivot from internal health to external conflict. Physical power, specifically in combat sports.
A sharp turn.
The source material was blunt. It said the power difference between men and women is crazy and that it's delusional to deny it.
Which is grounded in physiology, bone density, muscle mass distribution. Raw kinetic power has a biological starting point.
You see it in these little anecdotes, too. The story about Tommy's girlfriend, described as a big, stout lady. She hit the speaker, and he was just shocked by the power. The conclusion was simple. She'll knock you out. That surprise factor is what makes it so real.
And even at the elite level, you have to remember that. Look at someone like Amanda Nunes, a killer.
One of the best ever.
Absolutely. But the sources point out she isn't sparring a man her own weight who's going full blast. The physiological difference is just too much to ignore safely.
Then you see someone like Dakota JVA in the PFL,
Yeah.
a Muay Thai specialist. She looks like a CrossFitter, slim and slender.
But she has knockout power.
Wins most of her fights by knockout. That's pure technique and timing.
Which leads to the ethical line. You mentioned that a Rock video, the man boxing a woman.
It's tough to watch. When you see women getting badly beat up, it crosses a line for a lot of people. The source pointed out the ref eventually had to stop that fight because the man was taking such a beating.
Right.
But it forces you to ask where your curiosity ends and your concern for safety begins.
And that brings us to the next kind of power disparity. Not physical, but political and informational.
Where the lack of empathy becomes the weapon.
Exactly. This is where it gets really, really consequential. The controversy over those plaques placed in the White House.
This isn't just normal partisan stuff. This is weaponizing institutional history.
The language was incredibly aggressive. The sources detailed the plaque about the current administration, calling the president Sleepy Joe Biden.
And the worst president in American history.
Yes. And citing the most corrupt election, the highest inflation ever recorded, the green news scam.
And letting 21 million people pour into the United States, including, and this is the quote, from prisons and insane asylums.
It's an astounding level of hostility inside the institution itself. And the one about Clinton wasn't much better.
It said he got lucky with the economy because of the tech boom.
And then it just ends with this playground taunt that his wife ran against Trump and lost.
The point here is the erosion of norms. The presidential residence becomes a gallery for attack ads. That's a breakdown of respect for the office itself.
And it connects to that wider empathy crisis you mentioned.
Absolutely. You see it when commentators actually celebrate a personal tragedy, like what happened with the Rob Reiner family. The son murdering his father and wife.
This is a horrific story.
And to see people like the Charlie Kirk example from the source gloating over that kind of profound human suffering. It's just horrible. It shows a willingness to weaponize anything.
And this brings us to another highly contentious issue. We have to impartially report on this allegation from the sources about the 2020 Georgia election.
Right.
The allegation is about 315,000 early votes in Fulton County, a heavily Democratic area.
And the specific issue was what?
The votes reportedly lacked the required poll worker signatures on the tabulator tapes.
Okay, and for you, the listener, what's important to understand is the procedural part of this. Officials agreed that this is a violation of state law, specifically for record keeping.
Right. So even though those votes were later hand-counted and audited and the numbers matched up, the legal argument is about that initial chain of custody.
The integrity of the process itself.
Exactly. That technical failure is still a huge point of contention.
Okay, moving from domestic issues to the global stage, free speech and geopolitical conflict. The case of the Tufts University student.
Her visa was revoked.
Why? She was being a campus activist, criticizing the university's response to Gaza resolutions.
And the official reasoning, according to Marco Rubio in the source material, was that she was given a visa to study, quote, not to become a social activist that tears up our university campuses.
Wow, so engaging in controversial speech gets you ejected from the country. That really complicates the idea of the U.S. being the most pro-free speech nation.
It's a heavy-handed use of power. And you see similar high-stakes rhetoric with Venezuela.
The sources reported that former President Trump and top aides, including Rubio again, refused to rule out war with Venezuela.
And Maduro's response was immediate. He told his Navy to escort oil tankers and stand up to the U.S. fleet.
Which was the largest deployment in that region in decades.
It just shows how fast things can escalate. The margin for error just vanishes when military options stay on the table.
And let's circle back one last time to informational power. Benghazi. We're only focusing here on the initial information flow.
The administration's first story was that the attack was a spontaneous reaction to that amateur Innocence of Muslims video.
But that narrative was immediately challenged by conservatives, who said it was obviously a premeditated terror attack.
Right, and it just highlights that crucial challenge in any crisis, controlling the initial story. Intelligence agencies try to shape understanding in real time, and that always leads to competing narratives.
Okay, we've covered physical, political, and informational power. Now, brace yourself.
I'm ready.
We are diving into the darkest corners of nature, starting with something, well, just bizarre, the Zouave uniforms from the Civil War.
The Zouaves, they were such an odd sight. Their uniforms were inspired by French North African infantry, baggy pants, vests.
Almost like MC Hammer pants.
Kind of, and they were worn by major regiments from places like New York.
But the propaganda around them was insane. The sources had these quotes, claiming a Zouave could jump 17 feet 4 inches high.
Or shoot cards at 80 paces while doing somersaults.
It's pure recruitment hype. But that manufactured skill is so different from the genuine and frankly disturbing reality of the animal kingdom.
Which brings us to the Dolphin House experiment.
Run by John Lilly, the guy who invented the sensory deprivation tank. He was trying to teach dolphins to speak.
But the ethics just went completely off the rails.
I mean, it's shocking. A female researcher lived in a water-filled house with a dolphin, and to keep the dolphin cooperative,
She had to sexually gratify it daily.
to manage its frustration, the project was, not surprisingly, canceled. It's just a profound ethical failure.
And that study just opens the door to the much darker truth about dolphins. We think they're peaceful and smart, but
What they commit infanticide.
male dolphins, they intentionally kill calves that were sired by other males.
Why? What's the logic?
It's brutal evolutionary survival. By killing the calf, the mother immediately goes back into estrus. She becomes ready to reproduce again.
So the male who killed the calf can then meet with her and pass on his own genes faster.
Exactly, which means the females needed a counter strategy.
And what's the defense against that?
Extreme promiscuity. They sleep with as many males as possible.
To create paternity confusion.
Precisely. If no one knows who the father is, no one has an incentive to kill the calf. It's an evolutionary arms race waged through social behavior. And they even have some anatomical control over fertilization.
That is incredible. But it's not all about procreation, right?
Not at all. The research shows up to 75% of their sexual activity is non-breeding. It's for pleasure or alliances.
Masturbation, same-sex genital rubbing.
It's a social tool, a bonding mechanism, a way to diffuse tension, build alliances. It suggests a social sophistication we usually only attribute to ourselves.
So we have covered an incredible amount of ground today. From the personal fight against aging,
To the raw power in a boxing ring, the decay of political norms, and the absolutely brutal survival tactics in the ocean.
the theme is always there, though.
It is. It's the acquisition and the exercise of power, whether it's physical, informational, or reproductive. Understanding how far people and animals will go to get an advantage.
Yeah.
That gives you critical context for everything.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's leave you with the ultimate discussion of power. Nuclear energy.
Yeah.
You need to know the difference between the two types.
Okay.
What we use now is nuclear fission. That's splitting heavy atoms, like uranium. It's
Yeah.
what was in the first atomic bombs, and it's the trigger in modern hydrogen bombs.
And the other kind is?
The holy grail, nuclear fusion. That's combining light atoms, like hydrogen. It's what powers the sun. It promises almost limitless energy with virtually no long-term radioactive waste.
Because the fuel, hydrogen, can just be pulled from seawater. It's abundant.
Now, here is the high-stakes aha moment from our sources for today. Recent news reports that Trump Media and Technology Group is reportedly merging with a nuclear fusion firm.
What?
Their goal is to develop a utility-scale fusion power plant.
Okay, so consider the implications of that. If this revolutionary clean energy tech, the ultimate source of global power, is actually harnessed,
And its commercialization is immediately tied up with major political and media figures.
what does that mean for the future distribution of power and control across the entire globe?
That's the question we'll leave you with to mull over. We'll see you next time for the next deep dive.